Reimagining Stolen Narratives, Claiming Territory Between Genres. The isn't part of the title. Okay. At the risk of putting everyone here to sleep in anticipation of what my next sentence will bring, I'd like to talk to you about my dissertation. But it's a creative writing dissertation, so it can be an actual piece of creative writing and can be thus, I hope, entertaining. I'll tell you a bit about my way through the project and then read a few excerpts of it, and I think illustrate the discussion. Fiction allows a certain escape from the self, for the writer as well as the reader. So that was the part that attracted me to start a novel set around 1050 BC Egypt. But after taking a creative nonfiction workshop, the myriad subgenres and the boundaries of their modes took a growing hold of my interest. I began writing a memoir. Why would someone looking to escape himself in fiction write a memoir? How could I write a memoir and not write about myself? I could write about other people. Memoir can dip into other fiction and nonfiction traditions. For instance, look at Kristen Iverson's Full Body Burden, which is not only a memoir of her childhood in Colorado, but also an investigative account of the Rocky Flats plutonium production gone horribly wrong in her own backyard. The novelistic memoir I'm working on, The Uncle Territories, uses a map-like structure to survey the financial ruin of my uncle's golf course in Michigan, and to question family betrayals during the year that I worked there and lived above the pro shop. This project explores how literature pushes the fractal boundary between fiction and nonfiction, trying to tell the story of a man who loved to lie and my connection to him. The narrator's identity gains true significance in the context of other characters. However, identity presented through the dreaded navel-gazing memoirists are often accused of doing provides only a clear but upside-down image of a belly button. The scope must be larger, one that collects more than just lint. And here's the challenge of nonfiction when it stakes truth claims about other people's lives, when it tells other stories. Lee Gutkin's guide to writing creative nonfiction, You Can't Make This Stuff Up, argues essentially that you can't make this stuff up. He argues a more sophisticated approach as well, writing, because a blurry line exists between fact and truth, readers will usually make a judgment about the veracity of the stories being told and ideas presented based on their faith in the narrator. The higher the credibility of the storyteller, the more accepting readers will be. Making stuff up, no matter how minor or unimportant, or not being diligent in certifying the accuracy of the available information, endangers the bond between reader and writer. You don't have to be objective or balanced in presenting your narrative, but you must be trustworthy and your facts must be right if you're going to be a credible writer of creative nonfiction. I agree on trustworthiness and getting facts right when we use them. But what happens when we do make things up? I think we can do that in the right circumstances, if we clue in the reader to exactly how and why it belongs in the narrative. Hemingway also recognized the difficulties writing in the memoir genre. In the manuscript fragments that accompany A Movable Feast, he writes, "This book is fiction. I have left out much and changed and eliminated, and I hope Hadley understands. A book of fiction may eliminate and distort, but it tries to give a fictional picture of a time and the people in it. No one can write true fact in reminiscences." And other people will not understand why they are included or not included. Everyone sees it differently, and nearly 40 years are gone. Characters that seem strongest and most important to themselves are not there afterwards, although to themselves they are always more there than anyone. All remembrance of things past is fiction. With a nonfiction novel, In Cold Blood, Truman Capote, building upon hundreds of interviews and countless documents, imagines his way into the heads of Dick Hickok and Perry Smith, the two young murderers of the Clutter family in Kansas. There are pages upon pages of quoted dialogue and fully fleshed out scenes in which Capote could not have been present and that Dick and Perry would not be able to remember verbatim. Factual errors have been debated since the book came out in 1966. Just last year, some long-standing contention by the murder trial's prosecutor, Dwayne West, has been backed up by evidence that has come to light showing that Capote shortened the head investigators' slow response time to the lead that eventually led to their capture. Laura Miller, writing for Salon, states, "This becomes, then, a story about a writer's willingness to bend the truth a bit in order to burnish the image of his own story's hero. It is also, I think, a case of readership anxiety. Readers need to be cultivated and trained by authors to read each work in a certain context." Miller acknowledges, "Chances are, if Capote fudged the account of how quickly the KBI acted after receiving that decisive tip, the author did it because he thought the detail didn't matter much. Making mistakes and being biased are the necessary risks of telling any story, fiction or nonfiction or something in between, and the rewards, I hope, are worth it." David Shields, in his book Reality Hunger, attempts to reflect the new age of reality culture that surrounds us by sampling many people on the subject of those fiction-nonfiction boundaries, and he attributes authorship and citation only in microscopic print in the appendix. He asserts, "As a work gets more autobiographical, more intimate, more confessional, more embarrassing, it breaks into fragments. Our lives aren't prepackaged along narrative lines, and therefore, by its very nature, reality-based art, underprocessed, underproduced, splinters and explodes." Colin McCann's novel Transatlantic appropriates the narratives of historical figures, such as the men to make the first non-stop flight across the Atlantic and Frederick Douglass, among others. Readers seem less upset at McCann's appropriations than those of William Styron, when he appropriated the voice of the historical slave rebellion leader in The Confessions of Nat Turner. Who is authorized to tell whose story? Perhaps whoever can do it best? I think we should write the stories we are drawn to write and let readers judge our fitness as narrators after the fact. Dave Eggers worked in collaboration with the title character to write What is the What?, the autobiography of Valentino Achak Deng, which Eggers calls a novel. Deng writes in the preface, "It should be known to the readers that I was very young when some of the events in the book took place, and as a result we simply had to pronounce What is the What? A novel. I could not, for example, recount some conversations that took place 17 years ago. However, it should be noted that all of the major events in the book are true." Deng reminds us of the instability of all memory, in childhood or not, as well as the fragile strengths of the narrative form. David Shields again states, "Though nonfiction has as much fiction in it as fiction does, its aims are different. The mediation between writer and reader is thinner. Serious nonfiction removes fiction's masks, stripping away the monuments to civilization to arrive at truths that destroy the writer and thereby encompass the reader, the last shred of human expression before silence seizes all words." As I hope excerpts of my essay prologue to the memoir will demonstrate, I care less about genre delineations than how we treat the ground between the lines.